All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, into Faith and Fantasy. I am your gracious host, Taylor Williams, and this is the inaugural episode. This is the first episode of this new channel. Super excited to have you all with me if you're out there or watching it back on replay. Today, we're going to essentially just go through um, some backfields, some backups in the NFL world, and how we can sort out some of those backfields to take advantage of that huge upside that I think some at least have heading into 2026. Super excited for this football season. It is July 5th, so it's getting to the point where we're just right around the corner. And before we get started, I want to explain a little bit about the channel. Faith and Fantasy. You're probably wondering what's the faith piece about. Well, I am a Christian myself, and so I wanted to always put God first in what I'm doing, and so I wanted to put faith as part of my title, and I also want to give you guys a Bible verse for each episode, so you guys have at least something a little bit more interesting to chew on and think about than just fantasy football. So for today, I wanted to read you actually for the inaugural episode my favorite Bible verse. If you find me at JT42Willie on Instagram, then you'll also see this Bible verse in my caption. I actually added 24 into this as well, but Luke 9:24-25 as well. If you try to hang on to your life, this is the New Living Translation, by the way, NLT. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, but are yourself lost or destroyed? There's different iterations of that exact saying in the Bible and the other Gospels as well. But for some reason, I don't know why, but maybe it's just the Old English or something that really resonates with me. But hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of something to chew on. I know it's something that definitely gives me something to think about every time I hear that verse. So anyway, like I said, what we're going to do today in our time that we have here is go through some of these back fields that maybe have a little bit of ambiguity. Maybe they don't have as much ambiguity, but I see a lot of upside, or maybe I don't see much upside at all. And just walk through some of that, because I think that's something that's really lacking in the fantasy space. And that's why I chose to create this channel, because I really just want to get out here and maybe put out some content that I feel like might be lacking out there in the fantasy space right now. And I'm excited to kind of sort through this today. I do not have the ability to share my screen, but I will be sharing essentially a tier list. I'm sure you guys have seen those before, but a tier list that will show you all of how I've ranked these. Now it is for 25 and 26, so it's not going to have some of the rookies included, like, the Emmett Johnsons of the world, or the, Katron Allens, or the Nicholas Singletons, or anybody like that. But we can definitely, kind of just talk through it in this video. And if you need to, you always can call back. So anyway, first we'll start off with the first team in alphabetical order for the Arizona Cardinals. So we obviously know this is one of those backfields that's been kind of up in the air all off season. Oh, it looks like I'm actually on the clock here. I've been taking a lot of backup running backs here in this startup draft that I'm doing. I'm actually in, a myriad of leagues when it comes to like one QB or super flex. I don't really discriminate when it comes to leagues like that. So pretty pumped about being on the clock. It is round 33, so there's definitely not a lot to be looking at this point, but I do feel like I've built out a pretty good team. I'm going to go ahead and pick one of the guys that we'll talk about later in the video, Ray Davis, back up for the Buffalo Bills. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take another guy that I really like in Taj Brooks. Just really trying to load up on some of those backup running backs that we'll be talking about a little bit more later in the video. Anyway, Now we're back to it. Jeremiah Love. We know he was drafted 3 overall to the Arizona Cardinals. Depending on how you feel about that draft pick in general, you might think it's a brain dead decision, but I also tend to think that it wasn't the best move for the franchise of the Cardinals. However, at the end of the day, that's what they chose to do. I myself am a Colts fan. So, we've had Jonathan Taylor for a long time. I do think it's valuable to have a running back. I love running backs. And, I'm glad that we're starting off with a running back video. However, you got a pretty big, significant hole at quarterback. You got a lot of issues on defense. Arizona, they took Jeremiah Love. But anyway, today we're here to talk about the backups. We've got Tyler Algier, James Conner, Trey Benson, Bam Knight. That's who's listed. I'm using fantasypoints.com today. I love their content. And obviously, I think they do a very good job of outlining their data as well. Tyler Algier, we were looking at being the starter before Jeremiah Love was taken at number 3 overall. Obviously, Jeremiah Love's going to get plenty of content or plenty of carries and catches and all that. But Tyler Algier, I think, is probably going to get quite a bit of a run when it comes to especially the goal line work. So if I were to, I guess start off hot here, it's going to be an S tier for Tyler Algier. I love Tyler Algier. I liked him behind Bijan. I think he had some standalone value behind Bijan. And I think that's kind of going to be the same situation here, especially as Jeremiah Love starts to get worked into this Mike LaFleur offense. I guess it's a Nathaniel Hackett offense as well, which, that comes with some negative connotation. But I think both of these guys are going to have some standalone value this year. The big question mark after that becomes James Conner. He's a elder statesman at this point. Just being able to be on the field is obviously a very, very impressive feat after everything he's been through in his career. He's getting older, longer in the tooth. I think, what is he? He's, I want to say 30. Let me look at a player database here. So he is, my apologies, I should pull up something that's got the ages on there. First video. I'll just pull up keep, trade, cut. It usually moves pretty quick. 31. I thought he was 31 or 32. I couldn't remember quite, but he's 31. Not necessarily, a death sentence at 31, but I do think a lot of his explosiveness is probably going to be tapped here in this coming year, and I think it's really going to be a toss-up between him and Trey Benson on who's getting cut from the team. I think Bam Knight is something of a practice squad player probably, but I do think Trey Benson had a decent run when he was in there. It's just obviously he hasn't been as impressive as James Conner. I know that they can save a little bit of money if James Conner were to be cut and obviously go to another team. But it's going to be a real tough decision there. But I'm going to go with Conner. I'll put Conner in just C tier because I really don't know if he's even going to be on this team after the summer gets over. And then I'll probably put Benson in D tier just because there were already a lot of issues with, his vision. And I was in on Trey Benson when he came out. I really was. He had the big body, had the speed, size, speed specimen, but I just don't think he's really developed as much as I was hoping when he first came into the league. And so hopefully maybe we see that turn around. He is still a young player and, maybe he's willing or worth a bet at this point. But I'm going to go ahead and slide him in D tier, Conner in the C tier. And I think that means we can move on to the next team, which is the Atlanta Falcons. Everybody knows Bijan Robinson, but there's actually another B-Rob in Atlanta as well, Brian Robinson, who was in Washington. And then before that was, I can't remember what the team was before this. He was, I can't remember. Oh, well. Anyway, he's just, one of those backs that I think he is talented. He's got good size. He's not like glacially slow by any means. I think he does a great job of what he does. I don't think he, is definitely is one of the most explosive backs. He's definitely not going to give Bijan a run for his money. I'd probably put him in, but I think what you have to give him a lot of value for is just the fact that he is going to be most likely a very high touch player if Bijan were to get hurt, just a high handcuff value. And so I'd probably put him in B tier just because I don't think he would really be able to crack that top 12 by any means. And I'm just going to look up his team history here. I can't believe I can't remember. Oh, the 49ers. He was behind CMC last year. Yes. I just don't see him really cracking the top 12 in rankings on a weekly basis if you were to have him. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with. I think we got to go with B tier here, just because I don't think A tier is really fair for him yet. I think A tier is probably going to be reserved for others. And then you got the Tyler Goodsons, Nate Carters, Cash Jones. Again, another toss-up if they're even going to be on the roster. So I'm really not going to rank guys that I don't think are going to necessarily be on a roster. I think Tyler Goodson would probably be the pass-catching back. What does that get you? I've seen him on the Colts, and I saw him get, essentially outplayed by Amir Abdullah and DJ Giddens last year. So I don't really see a lot of faith in Tyler Goodson. Maybe I have a little bit extra bitterness because he dropped that pass that would have taken us to the playoffs against the Texans. No hate, Tyler, but unfortunately that just drives a little bit more of a wedge, I think, here, where I just don't think I need to rank you. So anyway, we'll move on to the Baltimore Ravens. And this is a team I am very excited about because I have a lot of conviction on this team past Derrick Henry. There are two guys that I want, and neither of them is Justice Hill. Justice Hill, I'm going to put in C tier, I guess. I don't even know, again, if he's going to play. He's getting up there in age, and I really, really believe in what I saw in Rasheen Ali last year. Rasheen Ali, I can only put him in B tier because I am excited about him. And while I am excited about him, I have to acknowledge the fact that there was a rookie in town that was essentially handpicked by the owner in the 5th round, Adam Randall. I think Adam Randall is you could almost say similar to the Trey Benson profile, but obviously drafted a couple of rounds later, where he is impressive for how he moves, for his size, especially having a background as a receiver, Adam Randall, being able to, I think he's 220, somewhere around there. He's a pretty big back for a former receiver. You don't see that very often. So I'd probably stick both of those guys in B tier. So just know that when you see my tier list after this, that Rasheen Ali, Adam Randall, they really could be, mostly a toss-up. And I love the talent of Ali, and I really do think that he probably outplays Randall. And I also think that his veteran deference might earn him some more touches here this year. But I do see where, sometimes the owner just gets his way. And I think that's definitely a reality here in Baltimore. So you got those. They got Dante McMillan listed here on Fantasy Points. I've never heard of him, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I've never heard anybody talk about him, so I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. Buffalo Bills. Again, this is another one where I feel pretty strongly about this. Ty Johnson, really only a 3rd down back to me. I'm gonna go C tier. He feels very similar to Justice Hill. And now just seeing James Conner and Justice Hill and Ty Johnson all on the same level, man, that just doesn't feel right. I almost want to put up Connor a little bit higher, but he's also a third string guy. So I can't really put him that much higher. Ray Davis, stock up. He did apparently change his number to number 7 instead of number 22, which I'm all in on. I love that. I've always loved Ray Davis since he's come in. He honestly, to me, gives me very close to Brian Robinson vibes, where he's not necessarily excellent at one thing or great at a single thing. But I think he's a solid back. He doesn't have the size to really carry power through his pads when he's going through the hole and, running between the tackles. But I think he's a solid back. I think he can do it all. I think he can, even take some passing work from Ty Johnson. Unfortunately, I just don't think the Bills, if James Cook were to ever, get hurt at some point, I don't think the Bills would ever just hand him the keys, kind of like Brian Robinson. So I'm probably going to have to I'll go ahead and put Ray Davis in C tier, and I'm going to go ahead and put Ty Johnson in D tier. And I also have Y at the bottom. And the reason I put S, A, B, C, D, Y was just because why are we even talking about this guy? So maybe I should have put a guy like, I don't know, Dante McMillan in there. But anyway, we don't really have him listed on the tier chart. Some of these people might not even be worth listing. So that's who I've got. I've got Frank Gore Jr. here listed on fantasy points. I'm not really feeling the Frank Gore Jr. experience. Is he worth a mention? Maybe in the Y tier, maybe in the D tier. Is he rosterable, in a deep league? Sure. Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. But yeah, I'm not going to really run a soliloquy on Frank Gore Jr., even though I did love his dad, of course, playing for the Colts. Now let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. This is obviously a hot topic of the summer. Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks, who's it going to be? This is one of those where it's going to be probably a 50-50 split, at least to start out. But to be honest with you, I've seen some of these videos coming out about Jonathan Brooks at camp already. He looks explosive. He looks much more explosive than I thought he was going to be, coming off of, all of the injuries that he's had. So where do I rank him then? How do I rank a split backfield? We don't know who's really going to be the backups. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just rank both of them. Chuba, I'm going to put in B tier, and I really can't put Brooks higher than A tier just because the Panthers' offense, I think, their ceiling is limited. And so, going off of just having Bryce Young as a quarterback, I think I think both of them, both Chuba and Jonathan Brooks, are going to be limited on the, pass catching role, just because of the fact that they do have a lot of receivers that they want to get the ball to. Obviously, they just re-signed Jalen Coker. They drafted Ted McMillan last year. They, still have Xavier Legette if you're holding a candle for him. They've got that 3-headed monster of Jatavian Sanders, Mitchell Evans, and Tommy Tremble, maybe? Let me look here. Yeah, Tommy Tremble, yeah. They still have Tommy Tremble, Notre Dame legend. Maybe not legend, but still, you gotta love the Irish guys. Anyway, they've got plenty of people to pass to, even like a Jimmy Horn or a Nia Smith that they got from the Jets. John Mechie they brought in. Chris Brazzell, obviously, they drafted this year. Yeah, that's just a lot of names. I just don't see a lot of – obviously Canales is pretty well known for getting his backs plenty of run when it comes to the passing game, but I love what I'm seeing from Jonathan Brooks, and I just hope he stays healthy. And I don't think I can put him in S tier with Algier, with a guy like that, just because I want to see it. I do want to see it first when it comes to Jonathan Brooks. Chuba Hubbard, I do like what I see when he plays. He's just – unfortunately, he's turning more and more into a plotter as time goes on, and he's not necessarily looking at least as explosive as his backfield counterparts. So we're ranking both of them. Trevor Etienne, obviously worth ranking as well. I'm going to throw him in the C tier with Ray Davis. I think both of those guys I've drafted a lot of Ray Davis in Dynasty. I don't really do best ball because I don't gamble, but I have drafted a lot of Ray Davis just because I do feel like he's the more solid handcuff behind Cook. Like I just don't think that with that Buffalo offense rolling into the red zone, obviously Josh Allen's the first person you think of when it comes to those goal line touchdowns outside of James Cook. But if James Cook were to go down, I think Ray Davis has some upside there. Trevor Etienne, I think that he needs at least both guys to go down. So I think I have to drop him down at least into the C tier. If not, maybe, I think it's only fair to put him in D maybe. And maybe Ray Davis needs to be moved up, but maybe up at the top I'll put him up at the top of the C tier. And then we'll put Connor and Hill down lower. So like I said, I will be sharing this after the video if you guys are interested. All right, let's move into the Bears. This one's interesting to me. They picked up Salvon Ahmed. They've got a guy named Britton Brown, which I have heard of, but I don't think I've ever seen him play. Probably a special teamer. A guy that I really was in on, mistakenly, of course, Roschon Johnson at the third slot. Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift as the starter. I think Swift is probably going to be the 60 to the 60-40 here. Kyle Monangai started to eat more and more into that role, but it's a Ben Johnson offense, great offense. So you're going to want Monangai. I've drafted a lot of Monangai because I do think he's going to eat closer and closer to that 50-50 role, and hopefully get some of those touchdowns that we're expecting the Bears to get a lot of. So I'm going to go ahead and put him in. Man, he's just because the offense is so good, I feel like you've got to put him in S tier. So we got two guys that are in 50-50 splits somewhat, really just goal line guys. Maybe, you're seeing a little bit of bias here already here in the first video, but Algier and Monangai, those are my two S tier guys so far here in the video. Just because I think they're going to get touchdowns in decent offenses. Now, Algier, maybe not in as good of an offense, but I do think he's going to get plenty of opportunity in between the 20s as well. And Monangai, he's had some good games last year against the Bengals. I remember him tearing them up. So I think those are two guys that deserve to be up there. And, I think I'm just going to leave Brooks alone in the A tier for now. And Roschon Johnson, man, I think he's going to be my first Y. I'm putting him in the Y. I love Roschon, but I can't just leave him off and I just can't leave him off the list, I guess, entirely. So I'm gonna put him in the Y tier just because I don't know why I really gravitated towards him. Let's go to the Bengals. Chase Brown. That's somebody who I'm drafting like crazy in all my startups this summer. I'm really high on Chase Brown, really high on the Bengals offense, just like, it's been a good bet to pretty much be every year. And hopefully Burrow stays healthy so we can take advantage of that fully all the way through the season. But they did retain Flacco, so that feels pretty good as far as like a floor goes. Samaje Perine, man. Can I put him in Y? That feels disrespectful. That really feels disrespectful because he does play better every time than what I assume is going to happen. Do they even have Perine on this list? Where the crap are the Bengals? Oh, you know what? Perine was on he was on a different team with in 25, wasn't he? No. Man, they didn't even put Perine on here. I don't even think they put Chase Brown on here. I don't see the Bengals at all. Well, I guess I should have checked that. I mean, they got Cam Scatterbo in here. They got Sean Tucker. They got, I don't even know who Watson is for the Titans or Wright for the Seahawks. Okay, well, that's a little bit of a bummer. Oh, there they are. Okay, I missed them. They're right here. Perine. So Perine, man, I want to put him in Y. but he plays too much. I got to put him in C right next to Justice Hill. I mean, he's earned just as much as Justice Hill at this point. Great offenses, both of them. So if they see the field, there's a high opportunity for him. I'll put P. Ryan there. But Taj Brooks, I'm going to put him above him. I'm going to put him in B. I think that's a better direct handcuff for Chase Brown. I think that's the guy that gets goal line carries. I think he had a great production profile coming out of Texas Tech. And if I was Zach Taylor, and this is just how I see the players, if Chase Brown goes down, I'm giving Taj Brooks 60-40. I'm giving Taj Brooks the opportunity to take that. And P. Ryan stays right in the same exact role he does, usually. That's what I would do. So I'm going to put him in B tier. I'm going to put Taj Brooks in B tier just because I believe in the talent. And, call that bias, call it what you will. But I'm going to put him, right ahead of Rasheed Ali just because I think it's a better offense. And I'm going to put him behind Chuba Hubbard and Brian Robinson. And maybe, I don't know. That's tough. It's kind of similar, honestly, to the Ray Davis situation. But we can play with this a little bit when we get closer to the end. Now we're going to move into the Browns. Probably need to get going quicker here. We're already at 20, almost 30 minutes here. And I think I've only gotten a few teams out of the way. But anyway, Dylan Sampson, this one's a pretty easy one. They've got Amani Marshall and Davon Booth. Sorry, guys. I just haven't heard those names. So Dylan Sampson, that's going to be the guy. I'm putting him in A tier right next to our boy Jonathan Brooks. I'm going to put him behind Jonathan Brooks just because I believe in the Panthers offense more. And I don't really see Raheem Rocket Sanders, even though I do believe in the talent a little bit, eating into that role behind Quinshon Judkins. And all of this, you have to think, think with a caveat at all times. Okay, what would happen if the starter went down? If the starter goes down, what's the upside? Does it really matter if I have this guy on my roster if that starter goes down? Can I trade him for a third? Can I trade him for, a couple fourths, something along those lines in Dynasty? That's what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for a shallow league trade piece if there was some upside afterwards, after, some injury that were to happen, because there will be injuries. I know we've had a couple of unprecedented years of people not getting injured at the running back position, but there will be injuries. There will always be injuries. So what's the upside if that were to happen? And right now I don't see a ton of upside with like a Rocket Sanders. So I'm going to put him in like a similar situation as like a Trevor Etienne in the D tier. I'll put them both at the top of the D tier, but like over Benson and a Ty Johnson. But I can't rank you much higher because I don't think you have much of a role, like the P. Ryans and the Hills and the Ray Davises. So, and actually I just picked Taj Brooks over Ray Davis in this startup that I just mentioned earlier. So money where my mouth is. Except not real money because I'm not gambling. So anyway, move on to the Cowboys. This is a fun one because it's a very, very high-flying offense, a lot of points, a lot of goal line opportunities, a lot of time on the field, and honestly, a lot of rumors. A lot of rumors coming from the OTAs and all that on who's going to be playing. Right now, Fantasy Points has Malik Davis, who did get the majority of the play last year. Malik Davis as the backup to Javonte Williams, on a high-flying Dak Prescott, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb. I'm even in on Ryan Flournoy. I like Jake Ferguson more than most. I think people just keep disrespecting Jake Ferguson on one of the best offenses that we have in the league. And so, therefore, there's going to be inherent upside for all of these backups. All of these backups. I've even heard the name Phil Maffa. And that was a guy that I was stashing last year as a rookie. And he came in with another rookie, Jaden Blue, who, he's the flashy one. He's the one with crazy speed, came out of Texas, hometown, cooking, I guess you could say. And I just took him in the startup before Taj Brooks. So I have to rank him at least above Taj Brooks here. And I think that's actually a pretty decent split between Chuba and Taj Brooks. I think there actually was a decent little bit of almost like a mini tier at the B tier. So I think Jaden Blue actually fits pretty nicely. However, Malik Davis, I feel like I got to put him in here too. He has a really ugly number for a running back, 43, but not as ugly as 37 for Phil Maffa. Malik Davis is one that, when he gets in, he does look explosive. And I've taken Malik Davis ahead of Jaden Blue in some situations this summer. So I think I got to put them right next to each other. I'm going to put them both right next to each other and right in front of Taj Brooks and Rasheen Ali in the B tier and right behind Chuba Hubbard. Just because of the offense. Just because of the offense and the opportunity that were to present itself if Javonte Williams, who has been known to get hurt in the past, should get hurt. Phil Maffa, I don't know what to tell you about Phil Maffa. I don't really think he was, some hard-hitting rookie when he was coming out. But again, it's really just the offense. If he were to somehow take Malik Davis's role from last year or take Jaden Blue's role entirely from last year, I don't think he's that style of running back. He's not a Jaden Blue by any means. But could he take Malik Davis's role? I can see it. And so, if I'm stashing, if I have to choose to stash these guys, man, he's a guy that I'd probably put in like around Trevor Etienne, Rocket Sanders, somewhere around there. I'd probably put him at the top of D tier or the bottom of C tier behind Pirine. And I think just because of the offense, I got to put him at the bottom of C tier behind Pirine, above Etienne, just slightly, very slightly. I think Etienne is a much better player than Maffa. I think he could actually be a full-time running back in the league if he were to give that opportunity. And I don't think I really feel that way for Maffa, but just because I don't see his pass catching acumen. But it's just a gut move. I don't know. Maybe how about I move ETN up to bottom of C tier and we go Maffa top of D tier. I think that feels better. Okay. Broncos. Man, this one is hard to look at to me. And it's all because of Sean Payton. Sean Payton, you cannot trust. You cannot trust that guy. You cannot trust who he's going to play. You can trust him to build a good offense. And I think it's really interesting that he was willing to hand over the offensive coordination to Davis Webb. He's got to trust that guy. This could be a great offense. I'm suspect of Bo Nix a little bit just because of his injury and coming off of that. And I'll just say the image that I've seen of his leg makes me worry a little bit. This is a hodgepodge. They were very vocal about wanting another running back this summer and offseason, pretty much since February. Very vocal about trying, or very obvious about wanting another running back. And then they drafted one in Jonah Coleman. I think Jonah Coleman is, I would almost put him in maybe like a Kyron Williams ilk, where he's not necessarily the biggest athlete, or maybe even like a Taj Brooks ilk, but maybe a little bit better. He can produce. He's a fire hydrant build, and I think he can definitely vulture some touchdowns from the one that everybody's excited about, which is RJ Harvey. I think RJ Harvey is probably the most athletically gifted, talented player in this backfield, but I think this is going to be a committee, a dreaded C word committee. I don't think they're going to give somebody other than maybe J.K. Dobbins more than 50% of this backfield. Now, J.K. could get hurt again like he did last year, and then, all bets are off, and I think it's RJ and Jonah Coleman back-to-back. They've got Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Beatty still. One of those guys will probably be bouncing back and forth between the practice squad. Tyler Beatty, I think, is probably the one that's, the odd man out. Whew, man. I do not want to rank McLaughlin or Beatty. I'm just going to rank Coleman and Harvey. I think Harvey is A tier for sure, just because of the talent, just because of the offense. I'm going to put him between Brooks and Sampson. And just know that when you're calling back to this, I'd probably put Coleman. Man, I don't know. Because he's a rookie, I feel like you got to give him some chances. I think you got to put Coleman in B tier somewhere. I mean, it's definitely behind the Dallas guys. I'd probably put Coleman between Davis and Brooks. So somewhere in there. I can't, do that with the jerseys here because they didn't have the rookies in here from last year or from this past draft. So, yeah. Anyway, Coleman, B tier, Harvey, A tier. Let's move on to the Lions. They got Drew Petzing. I'm high on Sam Laporta for that reason this year. But at running back, they also brought in a new free agent in Isaiah Pacheco from the Chiefs. Pacheco's looked rough. I'm not going to lie. The last couple of years. But this is a role that has been very valuable. This has been the David Montgomery role. I think they're bringing him in to be the David Montgomery. And the reason I say that is because they have done nothing past Pacheco. They still have Sion Vaki, who is a converted defensive back, as their third running back. I don't see why. I mean, there have been plenty of opportunities for them to draft a late running back that, somebody could have liked. Maybe they could have been the Jonah Coleman team. Maybe they could have been the, Seth McGowan team. But they're not. They still are choosing to roll out Sion Vaki, a guy that probably just plays special teams. And then they've got two guys, Jabari Small and Jacob Sailors after that, which, happy for them. Glad they made it to the NFL, but I've never heard their names, and I hope they make it. Pacheco is a tough one. I don't think he's as good as Montgomery, and I don't think he will be at any given time. So when it comes to Pacheco, it's not going to be like a standalone role like Montgomery was seeing. But it's such a high-flying offense in the Lions. I'm willing to bet on just about anybody that's attached to it. I got to put him in low A tier, I think. Low A tier. I mean, that kind of fits in with the Harvey, the Sampson, the Brooks, maybe slightly above a guy like Brian Robinson, because I feel like there's just a little tinge of standalone value. You don't necessarily have to wait on an injury. I just, maybe Brian Robinson surprises me. Maybe Chuba surprises me or surprises us all. But I think Pacheco is low A tier because he's got that standalone value and a great offense. Packers, Josh Jacobs, legal trouble. Do we know what's going to happen? No. But it seems, at least, the wave of tweets and, commentary on the legal issue has kind of faded for now. So I'm still expecting Josh Jacobs to be the guy. If you want to, stash these guys behind him, like Chris Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd, Pierre Strong, even Damian Martinez, another guy that I really liked coming out of Miami last year as a rookie. If you want to stash these guys, I'm not going to fault you. Do I know which one is going to be the backup? No, I do not. I don't think you could know that even if you're inside the Packers camp right now. What we do know is Emmanuel Wilson is gone. Emmanuel Wilson is gone, and he is in Seattle now, likely as a backup or maybe even third string, depending on who you listen to as far as information goes on George Holani in Seattle. So Chris Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd obviously has not been able to stay on the field. But Chris Brooks, man, do I have nothing to say about Chris Brooks as far as, his game and, his tape goes. It's really, I mean, I've watched it. I've watched some, and nothing really jumps off the screen to me. But these are guys that I think you have to stash just because of the whole Jacobs situation. You don't know, if you need a fill in for the first 4 games of the year, if Jacobs is going to get a little bit of a suspension or something like that. I think you stash them. I'm going to put them behind a guy like Ray Davis, and I think they're both even. If you want to pick Marshawn Lloyd over Chris Brooks because he's younger, by all means, go ahead. But I think they belong right next to each other because they both are 100% contingent on Josh Jacobs not being on the field. And he's getting older too, so there could be a little bit of injury risk there, but I'm not putting them over Ray Davis. Ray Davis is a much more talented back at this point. And honestly, I think he's in debatably a better offense. So Pierre Strong, Damian Martinez. I would put Damian Martinez probably in D tier somewhere, but I don't have the jersey, so we'll move on. To the Texans. They've got David Montgomery via free agency. I love watching David Montgomery play. He's got Woody Marks, Jawar Jordan, Noah Whittington, and Joshua Pitzenberger. That's a new one. Behind him, Woody Marks, I wasn't too impressed with what I saw last year. I thought he was going to be a little bit of like a diet Bucky Irving, I guess. I think he does have some decent lateral agility, but man, even when he makes people miss, it doesn't seem like it goes very far. So I'm going to put Woody Marks. I mean, he's going to have standalone value in some sense, but I don't know how to feel about the Texans offense in general. So a guy like Chuba, I would have to put over him. So I'm putting him in like middle B tier, somewhere around there. And I think both he and Woody both Chuba and Woody need to be over Brian Robinson in the B tier, just because Brian Robinson is just, again, contingent on the guy in front of him, and not necessarily in a great offense either. That's a tough one. But I'm putting at the top of B tier Chuba, Marks, then Brian Robinson. Then you've got the 2 Dallas backs. Then the Bengals, Taj Brooks, just because I believe in the talent and the offense, and Rasheen Ali. And then you can put hand-in-hand Adam Randall with Rasheen Ali as well. Jawar Jordan. Man. This is another guy I like. I like watching him play. He's got good speed. He doesn't run with great pad level, but he really brought a spark to that offense. I think I got to put him like high D tier because he is getting playing time. It's not like he's in the Y tier with Roschon. And I do think he's more explosive than a guy like Maffa and Rocket Sanders. But I don't think he's worthy of C tier with like a Trevor Etienne, just, those third stringers that I really think could be good. Because I just don't think Jawar would ever get, enough carries, enough touches to really be fantasy relevant. So I'm just not going to put him any higher than D tier, but I'll put him at the top of D tier. Noah Whittington could be interesting. Obviously, I don't have the ability to rank him on this tier list, but I could see him making maybe a little bit of noise this year. On to my Colts. Jonathan Taylor. He's very good. Newsflash. But behind him, we have DJ Giddens, drafted out of Kansas State, I believe in the 5th round last year. Seth McGowan, drafted out of Kentucky in the 6th round this year, I believe. Then we have Ulysses Bentley the 4th and Lincoln Pare, Pare, P-A-R-E. You pronounce that however you like. I do think ultimately DJ Giddens wins this job. Did he smash and stamp his seal of approval on this, handcuff spot? No. I was not, incredibly impressed with what I saw out of DJ Giddens. I think he runs with super high pad level. He's an athlete. I mean, he's such a good athlete. But man, it's almost like he's leaning backwards when he runs, which is crazy. It's unlike most running backs I've ever seen. I think Seth McGowan is a smart runner. I don't think he's an incredible athlete by any means. I think DJ Giddens and him are probably two polar opposites. If I were ranking the two, I think DJ Giddens gets the veterans deference, and I think he gets the direct handcuff role. I think, obviously we read the names. Amir Abdullah's gone, Tyler Goodson's gone, Salvin Ahmed is gone. I think he's the direct handcuff. And that alone in the Colts offense, if Daniel Jones is healthy, we have to assume health at this point, but we're not, I guess, for the running backs. There's a little bit of a oxymoron there. But anyway, DJ Giddens, man, the more running backs you put on the screen, the harder it gets to rank them. I'm going to go DJ Giddens in high B tier just because this is another situation where I don't think the talent of DJ Giddens, even if he were to get the, let's just say the Jonathan Taylor role, or maybe even like a smaller version of the Jonathan Taylor role. Let's say it's even 60 to 70% of the carries, of the touches. I still don't see him, exploding. Like he's not going to be like a top 12 candidate. It's just not going to happen. Jonathan Taylor lifts the other boats on the Colts offense like a rising tide. But DJ Giddens, he just doesn't have that transcendent talent to be able to do that. So I'm going to put him right behind a Brian Robinson and in front of the two Dallas guys. And I think the two Dallas guys are just kind of, I guess, cannibalizing each other because of that, because of the fact that we don't know which one is going to actually be the handcuff, even though Malik Davis, got most of the carries last year. I just feel like there's a chance that, some of the positive coach speak on Jaden Blue and the talent in the second year working in his favor. I think all of that could really help out Jaden Blue to maybe take that spot. So now let's move on to the Jaguars. Another interesting team. They brought in Chris Rodriguez Jr. behind who I believe is going to be their clear starter, Bashal Tutin. Chris Rodriguez, man, another Kentucky guy, drafted a few years ago, played for the Commanders previously, also played for Liam Cohen previously, though. I'm just going to say it. I mean, maybe my evaluation is off, and you can take this with a grain of salt, but I think Bashal Tutin is probably better at goal line than Chris Rodriguez. Goal line takes some explosion, and Chris Rodriguez has almost none of that. And I think that this foot injury that he is nursing over the summer is probably going to sap it even more. I have no faith that Chris Rodriguez is threatening to Bashal Tutin. However, I do think Chris Rodriguez could be very valuable as a handcuff. So I'm going to go with Chris Rodriguez in, I think, A tier. And this is a situation where I really believe in the offense. I think I'm going to put him at the bottom of A tier just because I do think LaQuint Allen and maybe even Amir Abdullah, who is now on the Jaguars, could cut into Chris Rodriguez's work. I mean, it's not like they're just going to hand over the keys if Bashal Tutin were to get injured, but this is a great offense. Jaguars is a great offense. It sucks for the Colts, but they have a great offense. Liam Cohen has really turned things around there, and you can't ignore the fact that Chris Rodriguez is a Liam Cohen guy. And so I'm going low A tier just because of the offense, not because of the talent. Do I think a guy in B tier like Chuba Hubbard is more talented? Yes. Brian Robinson's probably more talented. Jaden Blue might even be more talented. I think maybe even Rasheen Ali and Ray Davis probably more talented. And they're in good offenses. But I don't know. I mean, It's a tough comparison, and maybe you do have to take into the account more the talent because like we talked about with Giddens, I just don't think it's really going to, hit that ceiling play. I think maybe I'm talking myself back into B tier. Maybe B tier right between. Yeah, they're just not going to give him all the work. Whereas I think, a Jaden Blue or some guy like that in a better offense, even maybe in the Cowboys, really could take off if there were an injury. So I'm going to go Rodriguez, maybe. But he has standalone value. That's the tough part. I don't think Jaden Blue has standalone value. That's a tough one to rank. Rodriguez. I know a lot of people are talking about him. And maybe just because of the foot injury, I do put him behind Blue. And Davis. Malik Davis. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the most comfortable spot for him. And maybe I even move DJ Giddens back behind it. So now my B tier reads Chuba Hubbard, Woody Marks, and this is going from top to bottom. Chuba Hubbard, Woody Marks, Brian Robinson, the two Dallas backs, Jaden Blue and Malik Davis, Chris Rodriguez, then DJ Giddens, Taj Brooks, Rasheed Ali, and Taj Brooks and Rasheed Ali, I'll admit, they're talent bets. A lot of people in B tier. A lot of people I'm feeling good about. LaQuint Allen, also stock up. This guy changed his number to number 5. Pretty excited for that. Because his ugly number of 36 was not working for me. I'm going to go pretty easily at the top of D tier here. Again, it's a really good offense, so I'm definitely putting him over Jawar Jordan and the Phil Maffas. He's more of a pass blocking running back from everything I've heard. I haven't really watched a ton of tape. I've watched some, but I seem to corroborate what I'm hearing. There is a lot of pass blocking on his film, and I definitely don't want to put him over like a Trevor Etienne or Samaje Perine or James Conner or any of those standalone guys on the good offenses like Ray Davis and Chris Brooks and Marshawn Lloyd. Yeah, I don't see it with him. I know a lot of people hype him up. I just don't see it like him getting more than 10 touches in a game. All right, let's move on to everybody's favorite team, the Kansas City Chiefs. They got a new starter in Kenneth Walker in free agency. A lot of people excited about that one. And behind him, we have Emari Demercado from the Cardinals. We have Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska, the rookie. Then we have Brashard Smith and Jaden Ott, another rookie. I'll be honest. I liked Brashard Smith last year. That didn't work out. Sometimes you just cut bait with the ones that you love. To really show true love, sometimes you just got to let them go. That's how Brashard Smith is for me. And because of that, because of my love for Brashard Smith, I'm ranking him. Not in the Y tier, because that's hateful. I'm putting him at the bottom of the D tier. Because he did I would probably even say less than Ty Johnson. But he is getting ranked out of respect for Brashard Smith. And hopefully he comes out and, smashes or something. That'd be great. However, it does list him, probably rightfully so, behind Emmett Johnson and behind Emari Demercado, which would apparently Emmett Johnson went ahead and just stole Pacheco's number. All right. If this means I don't have to see Kareem Hunt on a football field again, I will consider that a win. However, this Emari Demercado and Emmett Johnson situation, I can't make heads or tails of. I don't know. Demercado's looked good in some games for the Cardinals. He's on a better offense than he's probably ever played on. He's interesting. He can hit a home run. Emmett Johnson, I don't think can hit a home run. He reminds me a little bit more of like a Kenny Gainwell, but bigger a little bit. Pass catcher for sure. Pass catcher for sure. I don't think he's as explosive as Brashard Smith, but I think he's probably going to get more work than, Brashard Smith would, even got last year with a much less crowded backfield. I do think veterans deference is going to come into play here. And so I'm going to give DeMercado the nod. And of course, I can't even rank the Emmett Johnson because he's not on the tier list. But a guy like DeMercado, it's a Chiefs offense. And I also do think there's something to the fact that Kubiak never wanted to give Kenneth Walker the full backfield, 80% of carries. So I think DeMercado could have slight, and I mean slight, standalone value. And in order to make this happen, I think I'm going to go ahead and bump Chuba up to A tier. And I'm going to put DeMercado at the top of B tier. I think that's fair enough because I feel a little shaky about the Chiefs this year, having Mahomes coming off of his ACL tear. I think that's going to limit the offense a little bit. He was running quite a bit last year to get the offense down the field. And I just think he probably has more upside than a guy like Woody Marks. However, a guy like Brian Robinson being behind him, probably more upside, but also not as good of an offense. I think that's probably fair. DeMercado, Marks, Robinson, all at the top of B tier. And we're moving Chuba up to the same tier as Jonathan Brooks, but Chuba will be at the bottom of A tier and Jonathan Brooks will be at the top of A tier. I think that's fair. Okay. Emmett Johnson can't rank. Raiders. Team I am excited about. I am, late round. I'm picking up any of them. Give me Naylor. Give me Trey Tucker. I'm not going after Deontay Thornton. Holy cow, they have Philip Dorsett. That is actually kind of shocking to me. I can't believe he's still in the league. When was he drafted? When was Philip Dorsett drafted? For the Colts, he was drafted in 2015. So he's been in the league for 11 years. Now, he might not be on the Raiders when the season starts, but technically he is third string right now. Wow. Behind Malik Benson and Derek Young. But we're not here to talk about wide receivers. We're here to talk about who is behind Ashton Genty. The rookie, Mike Washington. I can't rank him, but just know that I'd probably put him somewhere. I don't think he's going to have standalone value, but it's Kubiak, It's Kubiak as the coach there. You almost have to put a little bit of credence to the fact that, again, he had a pretty adamant nature about splitting backfields. Man, I have a lot of Genty. So maybe I've got a little bit of a blind spot. But I'm going to go, I'd probably give him like a similar role to Brian Robinson in B tier. So Brian Robinson, B tier, somewhere around there. Try to remember that. Dylan Laub. This was a guy that I liked coming out. A lot of people liked. Maybe a little more than me. But I think he's interesting. I think he's probably around the Brashard Smith range. And on a worse offense, I got to put him behind Brashard Smith. So, yeah, we'll put him in D tier, right at the end of D tier right now. And then behind those guys, Chris Collier and Roman Hemby, the rookie out of IU. Deep leagues, take a shot on Roman Hemby. I think both of those IU running backs are somewhat interesting. Kalen Black, obviously, going to the 49ers. We'll talk about him later. But, yeah, Roman Hemby, take a shot on if you got no other options to get any RB on a 53, shout out Scott Connor. Chargers. If I can mention anything in my first video, it's that I'm in on the Chargers in 2026. Big time in on the Chargers. So we're about an hour in the video, and I think we're about halfway. So great. Anyway, if you're in best ball, I don't play best ball again, but Keaton Mitchell, he's listed as the running back on fantasy points, and I would be all over him. I mean, Mike McDaniel, the new offensive coordinator for the Chargers, put his picture up like it was a wanted poster right when he got to the Chargers facility and said, I want Keaton Mitchell immediately. And who in this backfield reminds you more of Devon Achane? His biggest success story, I would almost say, outside of maybe Tyreek Hill, while he was a Dolphins coach. Obviously, he's had injury issues, but he's still explosive based on what I saw at the Ravens last year. So, Keaton Mitchell, I'm drafting him everywhere. I like even Kamani Vidal. Where can I put Keaton Mitchell? Man, I'm putting him in A tier. Just because I love the offense and I love the talent. I mean, you can't – and he's a backup. I mean, Hampton got injured last year. He could have – I mean, it's not like he's going to be a bell cow and, you know, they're probably going to put Kamani Vidal in quite a bit. But Keaton Mitchell, man, as far as that pass-catching role goes, I'm not out on Hampton. I like Hampton a lot, but I think Mitchell is going to have standalone value. And I'm going to put him in middle A tier, above Dylan Sampson, above a Pacheco, above a Hubbard. And I'll put Vidal, again, the offense has given him some upside here. So I'm going to go – I think Vidal is more talented than a guy like Chris Rodriguez. I'll put him mid-B tier between the two Dallas running backs and Chris Rodriguez. On to the Rams, the other LA team. Blake Corum, standalone value, big time. Standalone value and might even overtake the job from Kyren Williams. And I love Kyren. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I love what he's been able to do, but he's small and he's not that athletically gifted. If he gets injured, which I think is probably more likely than other backs, I mean, this is a guy I'm putting in S tier. This is like the last guy that I look at. I think he's probably number one. I think he's number one in S tier over Algier, over Monangai. And that's because I think he's got a real good chance of maybe even becoming the starter, even without an injury. I don't think Algier or Monangai can do that. Brooks, I'm only bringing down to A tier because of the injury issues. I mean, I could see him in the Corum thing, and also he doesn't have as much upside as Corum because he's not in the Rams offense. Interestingly enough, Fantasy Points also lists Ronnie Rivers over Jarquez Hunter still. Jarquez Hunter had the issue of a really ugly number last year. I believe he was wearing number like 35 or something, but 27 is much better. Glad he's doing that now. Ronnie Rivers is a Y. I'm putting him right next to Roschon Johnson. No way am I talking about him seriously. Jarquez Hunter, man, I like him better than everyone in D tier. I'm going to put him right in front of a guy like Trevor Etienne at the bottom of C tier. And we're moving on. Jordan Waters, I have no idea who that is. Dolphins, back to Devon Achane. But this one's really interesting to me. There's a new regime in Miami. They're from Green Bay. What does Green Bay like to do? They like to use big running backs. And they've got two of them. Jalen Wright, Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon obviously bigger, but I think Jalen Wright showed on tape last year he was more explosive. He was seeing holes a little bit better. Now, Ollie was only a rookie. But I think these guys are hand in hand. I mean, I have a hard time choosing between the two. in startups. So for me, it's like a mirror of the situation for the Packers, except on a worse offense. But I'm definitely taking him over a guy like James Conner, so I got to put them right next to each other. And I'm giving Jalen Wright the slight edge. In fact, actually, I'm going because there's more clarity and more faith in Jalen Wright. I'm putting him over Jalen Wright, or I'm putting him over the Packers guys, even though it's in a worse offense. I get it. But I also think there's a size issue with Devon Achane again. Now, obviously, he's beaten most of these allegations as far as this, the size of him creating maybe issues for injuries. But I do think that there's some upside on one of these guys. And I think more probably than the guys on the Packers, because I think they'll probably split it a little bit more should Jacobs go down. And I think the Dolphins will be more inclined to choose between Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright should Achane go down. So on to the Vikings. I just saw something on Twitter recently, actually, that Jordan Mason's the guy. Jordan Mason is leading this backfield. And that Aaron Jones is essentially going to be spelling and the pass catcher, which, obviously fits the way they play. I like Damon Claiborne. I like the rookie. I do. Already getting compliments from Aaron Jones saying that, he reminds him of Jahmyr Gibbs. I think this could be a situation where Damon Claiborne takes Aaron Jones' job outright by the end of the year, whether there's injury or not. I think Jordan Mason has little upside. I'm not going to rank him because I do believe that he's probably going to lead this backfield. I think Aaron Jones is just too many injuries at this time or at this point, and that's unfortunate. So I'm not, we can rank Jones. I have drafted him. I'll put him probably high B tier. Ahead of DeMarcado because I think he has more standalone value. And I know we've been putting standalone value guys in A, but I can't trust him to get through all 16 games. I can't. It's the same reason that Brooks is popped down, or Jonathan Brooks is down in A tier. I'm putting Aaron Jones down in B tier. He has standalone value, but I can't trust him to play all 10 or all 8 or 17 games. Thank you. They've got Xavier Scott still and Kehan Owens. All right. Let's move on. Xavier Scott, he flashed a little bit last year, but Damon Claiborne is taking that spot. Interestingly enough, Fantasy Points has Ramondre Stevenson as the starter for the New England Patriots. I'm way higher on Travion Henderson than that. I think Travion is going to be the 60 guy. The 60 guy and the 60-40. But Ramondre, one of the best offenses in the league, thanks to Drake May, I will rank you. And I will rank you right behind Corum, just because I think the Rams offense is a little bit better. And I think there's less of a chance that he is the 60% guy by the end of the year. He might start out the year 60% of the snaps. But I think the more and more that they need those big plays, and they're going to have a tougher schedule this year. They can't just run Ramondre up the middle. Ramondre's been efficient. The underlying metrics look great for Ramondre. I just believe in the talent, Travion Henderson, too much. I think he's going to take the starting role. They got Lan Larison, Jan Miller, and Terrell Jennings from last year. Larison, I can't tell you much about. but he is the third string running back right now on this offense, and I'm going to put him in, maybe he's more of a fullback type. Terrell Jennings, I know, got some play, but they've drafted Jam Miller, and right now they've got Terrell Jennings listed, at least on fantasy points, as the 5, so as the 5th back. So I'm not going to really rank him. Jam Miller's interesting. I've taken him, I think, in one deep league. So it's not like I'm totally avoiding him. Larison, I'm going to put him behind Dylan Lobby at the end of the D tier because I just don't know if he's good at all. I don't know if he's got any juice. Next, we've got the Saints. Alvin Kamara. He is going to be the backup to Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne got a 4-year deal from the Saints. And so I do think that that's going to buy him a majority of the workload. I do think Kamara quit a little bit on the season last year, didn't really play to the height of his ability that we've seen in the past. He's obviously getting older. That's a guy that I think you could probably put around the Aaron Jones in the B tier. Obviously, he has the talent, more talent in his, in one hand than Amari DiMercato, who I've got ranked right behind him. But it's a different situation when you just feel like there's maybe not all the effort is there for Kamara, as he, plays out the rest of his contract and just wants to stay a Saint. So Devin Neal, that's another guy I like. He kind of reminds me of Brian Robinson a lot. However, he's in more of a Trevor Etienne type role. And so I'm going to put him. I mean, this offense should be good this year. They still have a Kendre Miller. They still have an Andrick Estime, go Irish. But man, I was so in on Kendre Miller. And I'm just going to put him in Y tier because at least he's going to be shown. I liked Kendre Miller a lot. Wow, they had Nyheim Hines. I didn't even know that. Man, they were obsessed with the Colts. They've got Evan. They had Evan Hull and Nyheim Hines last year. Devin Neal, I think, probably goes in. I'm going to put him in between Jarquez Hunter and Trevor Etienne in the C tier. Just because I think he does remind me a lot of Brian Robinson, who is somebody who has taken carries, like a bulk of carries before, and been effective. But I don't think that it's going to happen anytime soon with Kamara and Travis Etienne now in the backfield for the Saints. New York Giants. Cam Scatterboo. Obviously, he's the starter. Tyrone Tracy. Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, and Dante Miller. Man, I picked up some Dante Miller last year after the preseason. That's sicko level stuff right there. I think we go Tyrone Tracy as some standalone value. I think I'm definitely putting him over Pacheco. I think this offense runs the ball enough with the new coach, John Harbaugh, to merit probably being above Dylan Sampson, but I'm not putting him above Keaton Mitchell, and I'm not putting him above Harvey. There's no way. People would be at my door with pitchforks if I put him over Harvey. Outside of that, you got Devin Singletary. Man, he's hard to watch. I'm not going to lie. He's hard to watch. And because of that, I'm going to put him – I mean, he could have a role. I mean, he's kind of in the Justice Hill Pirine situation, but he's not that good. I mean, I'd rather watch Dylan Lobby play. I'm not going to lie. I'm putting him in Y. We'll put him at the top of Y, not that it matters, because Y is just kind of a why are we talking about this? But I'm going to put him in Y because I just don't want to watch him anymore. I don't. I can't do it. I mean, he's maybe that's disrespectful. Where should I put him? That's my question. he's earned something of a role before, but the coach that loves him, the called him motor, Brian Daboll, is gone. He's in Tennessee now. I'm leaving him in Y tier. All due respect, love you, Devin, but I can't do it anymore. Let's go to the Jets. Breece Hall, huge fan of his. Love Breece Hall. Would love for him to have a huge bounce back season. I think, he's even got some really interesting backups. However, we know that there are some major limits to this Jets offense. Braylon Allen was kind of having a little bit of a breakout when he got injured last year. I'm going to put him in B tier. The Jets offense definitely limits this. So I'm going to put him right behind Brian Robinson, a very similar role where I think Braylon Allen will probably be getting a majority of the touches. I do think Isaiah Davis probably cuts into that quite a bit. And out of all the third string running backs, depending on how you feel about it, like a Rasheed Ali or Taj Brooks, if those are really the third stringers, I'm hoping not this year. That's kind of what I'm betting on with those guys. With Isaiah Davis, man, I can't put him over Ray Davis. He's just not that as good as Ray Davis. I don't think he's good as the two Miami guys, but I do think he's better than James Conner at this point. I do think he's better than both of the backups in Green Bay, but it's a rougher offense. I do think if Breece Hall goes down, he has standalone value. That's probably a little bit better than a Brooks or a Lloyd. And he's shown the ability to stay healthy. He's shown the ability to catch passes. I like Isaiah Davis. I think he is probably one of the better third string backs in the league, kind of like an ETN, a Trevor Etienne, I should say. So, yeah, that's where I'm going to put him, is right in C tier. They've also got Kene Nwangu. He's mostly a kick return specialist or punt return specialist. And then they have Chip Trianum. Okay. Somebody tell me something about Chip Trianum in the comments, please. Philadelphia Eagles are next. Tank Bigsby, drafting him everywhere, all day. You're the handcuff behind Saquon Barkley behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. You've got my attention, sir. You also have a really, really efficient rush rate right now. I'm all in. I'm putting you over Algier in the S tier. I'm not putting you over Stevenson just because Stevenson is probably starting the year as a 60%er maybe over Henderson. But I will take you over. I will take you over Algier. Man, I don't know. Maybe I want Monungai over Algier too. I think I got to go Monungai over Algier. And I think I actually have to go Algier down to B behind Brooks now that I think about it. Because Brooks, I do think probably takes that starting role over the course of the season. I don't think Algier ever gets the starting role. I think he has standalone value, but I think it may be closer to like a Pacheco. And Mitchell, I feel like I got to keep behind him. Or Harvey, I got to keep behind him. Yeah, I think A tier now is Brooks, Algier, Harvey, Mitchell, Tracy, Sampson, Pacheco, Hubbard. And now our S tier is Corum, Stevenson, Bigsby, Monungai. That's our S tier right now. I think that looks better. Okay. Will Shipley, man, I was all in. Man, I just fall for these little pass catching running backs, man. Brashard Smith, Dylan Lobby, even Trevor Etienne, Isaiah Davis, all these guys, all just didn't work out, unfortunately. And he's still the third string behind Saquon on a good offense. That's what I was betting on. I think he's talented. He's shown some good stuff when he gets in there. I do think he's more talented than a guy like Devin Neal. So I'm going to put him over Devin Neal right behind Jarquez Hunter. I'm going to put Trevor Etienne over Devin Neal as well. Yeah, I think that looks good. So we got Hunter, Shipley, Etienne, and Neal at the bottom of C tier behind P. Ryan and Justice Hill. They've also got Dameon Pierce and Carson Steele, the fullback phenom, Carson Steele at the 5 slot for the Eagles. Interesting. Huh. Just another person to push for the tush push. Gotta love that. I'm really not going to rank Pierce or Steele. I'm just going to move on because we've got an interesting one here, and that's the Steelers. I've heard conflicting things from most fantasy analysts on this, from most people that are reporting even on the Steelers. Between Rico Dowdle and Jaylen Warren, who's the starter? Who's the starter? I mean, if you're watching this back later, let me know in the comments because I don't know. I do not know. They've gotten rid of Kenny Gainwell in free agency, which obviously opens the door for Rico. Rico coming over from the Panthers, having a great year last year, 1,000 yards last season for the Panthers, but the Panthers let him go. So how valuable is he really? I love watching Rico play. I had him on, a couple of my teams, and he was, a huge, huge boon of fantasy points in the middle of the season when he started going off. Now, obviously, he faded down the stretch. Chuba got more involved again, and that kind of hurt him. But, man, it's a complete toss-up between these two. Do I just rank them both? I think I just rank them both. I don't love the Steelers' offense this year, so I don't think I rank either of them over a guy like Corum. But one of them will probably outscore a guy like Corum if, Kyron stays healthy. So in that case, I do think Rico probably gets a majority of the carries and touches. I'm going to put both of them in S tier just because I think it's going to be 50-50, right down the middle. It's going to be 50-50. Caleb Johnson, I'll rank you just out of pure curiosity. I'm putting both Warren and Dowdle in S tier just so you all know, over Bigsby and over Monungai, but behind Corum and Stevenson. So I've got 6 now in S tier. And who did I say? I said, Caleb Johnson. Do I even want to talk about him? I'm going to put you are the third string running back in a decent offense. I don't love the Steelers offense. I think Rodgers is going to severely cap them. Obviously he's the best option they had after, waiting for so long and dragging out the summer decision last year and all that. But Caleb, man, they drafted him in the 3rd round last year. You'd like to think that he would get some run. Maybe he's kind of in that semi-uniform area where you've got like some talented third stringers, like the Jarquez Hunter, Shipley, Trevor Etienne, Devin Neal. Those are all better offenses probably. Are they? Let me look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, so the Panthers did put together less yards per game last year, but only by about 10 yards per game. What about rushing? How'd rushing look? Panthers definitely outdid the Steelers last year. Yeah, he's bottom C tier. He was kind of in the doghouse for the previous coaching regime, so I'm not going to really hold that against him. So I'm not going to put him in like the top of D tier with like LaQuint Allen and Jawar Jordan. He's still got hope. He's still only a second-year guy. I think he was pretty good. He does remind me a little bit of almost like a Najee Harris or even like a Tyrone Tracy. I know they went to the same school, and maybe that's a little bit of a cheap helmet scouting situation, but I think he almost reminds me of that, outside of the fact that honestly, he's almost like a faster, more explosive Najee Harris. and I was not high on Najee even before his injury, but obviously loved him coming out of Alabama. I love Alabama as my second favorite school, but yeah, I didn't see like a ton of talent. I know some people were like vaulting him up to their RB1 last year, and I just could never do that. But yeah, bottom of C tier. I think we spent enough time on the Steelers there. 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, one of my favorite players in the league. Love Christian McCaffrey. Hope he stays healthy, but this is a big backfield to get right in case he does not stay healthy. I did not know that they brought in Raheem Morris as their defensive coordinator. Okay, that's interesting. Christian McCaffrey puts together a lot of points every single year, but Jordan James and Kalen Black and Isaac Guerendo and technically Jamar Jefferson are all behind him, waiting for their opportunity. I think this is another 50-50 behind Christian McCaffrey. And because of that, I think it's got to go C tier. And I really didn't like Jordan James as a prospect at all. And I don't love Kalen Black either. So just know that where I'm putting Jordan James in C tier, I'm going to say behind the two Packers guys above James Conner. No, there's just too much upside. I'll put him right behind Ray Davis at the top of C tier. Because it is a backup role. You know, one of them will pop off. One of them will pop off if CMC were to go down. But hopefully we don't have to see that. On to the Seahawks. They drafted Jadarian Price in the first round. Again, go Irish. Charbonnet down with an ACL, probably through, at least based on what I'm hearing on Twitter and other YouTube broadcasts, probably through the end of October. Emmanuel Wilson, George Halani, and Velus Jones Jr., former Bear. I think Jadarian Price is going to get quite a bit of the work here. I know that there's rumors of George Halani going through team drills as the first back, Emmanuel Wilson being the third string guy. I think all of them are going to get a crack at it, but I think Jadarian Price is the most talented guy, even over Charbonnet. I know that the prospect profile is not strong, especially from a production standpoint. And maybe I'm following in the Roschon Johnson trap again. But Jadarian is so much more explosive than Roschon. I mean, sometimes this is why you just got to watch the tape. You got to do both, analytics and the tape. I'm going to go with Jadarian Price as the starter. Charbonnet, I'm not even going to rank because I just don't think he's going to come back this year. And be 100% this year, I should say. I think he'll play, but I don't think he'll be 100% to where we're really going to want him to start confidently in our lineups. George Halani, I was picking him up everywhere. This is a guy that I love looking at on my roster. I love having him there. It's tough. It's tough to figure out where he goes here. Obviously, Kenneth Walker left in free agency. They actually don't have Kenny McIntosh anymore. Bummer. I liked Kenny McIntosh. But I'm going to go, I think he has more of an opportunity than Caleb Johnson at the bottom of C tier. And, well, I mean, if he's beating out Emmanuel Wilson now, then technically he could be the backup for Jadarian Price until Charbonnet gets back. But is there upside there? I don't know. We know that the reports are saying that Jadarian Price is not going to get like a bell cow load here. Pause. This is a tough one. Not a lot of upside. So I'm going to go, it almost feels pretty similar to like a James Conner, Justice Hill, just not really feeling too excited about that. But I do like Kalani. Watching him play, is more fun, like just so much more fun than like a guy like LaQuint Allen or Jawar Jordan or even a Maffa or Raheem Sanders. Man, I really feel like I've now been very harsh on Trey Benson, but he is a fourth string running back. So I don't know what else to do, especially unless he gets traded. If he gets traded somewhere or released, then we have a different situation. Buccaneers, who apparently have no defensive coordinator, according to fantasypoints.com. I don't know if that's a glitch or what. But anyway, Bucky Irving, Kenneth Gainwell, who got number 1. That's cool. Sean Tucker, and Josh Williams. Apparently my brother plays for them. Okay, cool. Kenneth Gainwell, a lot of hype around him. Obviously, Bucky Irving starting to fall with some of the injury news, whether it's his shoulder. I think he has a foot, I believe. And then also even just some of his, his mental health has been a little bit questioned, I think, over the summer just because of some of the stuff that he was going through last year. It's going to be interesting. I think Kenneth Gainwell is probably going to get a lot of the pass catching work, which has been valuable in this offense. And Zach Robinson is a guy who definitely likes to throw it to the running back based on what we saw last year from Bijan in Atlanta, because that's where Zach Robinson was. I'm going to go Gainwell. He's definitely got standalone value. It almost feels like a Keaton Mitchell type deal up in A tier, where he's going to have the standalone value. I think this offense is going to be much improved compared to last season, just having a healthy Baker. I do think, getting rid of Mike Evans might hurt them overall, but letting those younger guys develop, like the Jalen McMillan, like the Emeka Egbuka, the Ted Hurst, the Tez Johnson, even the Cameron Johnson, I think that's going to help them become a better offense overall. So you got to rank all these guys. Gainwell, Sean Tucker, even I'm gonna throw him. I mean, he's a high end third string running back for sure, and he's shown that he can really put up some points when he gets the opportunity. And just because he's shown maybe a little bit more than maybe these Miami backups and these Green Bay backups, I'm going to go ahead and put him right behind like a Jordan James and a Ray Davis. I don't know. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe he's more of like a Holani. Wedge him between James Conner and Holani. Still third stringer. Those other guys kind of have possibility of becoming a backup if something were to happen. So let's move on to the Titans. We're getting close. Tony Pollard, Tyjae Spears, Nicholas Singleton, the rookie, Michael Carter, the former Arizona Cardinal, and Khalil Mullings, however you want to say it. I think it's a complete toss-up between Spears and Singleton behind Tony Pollard, to be honest with you. I think Tony Pollard was just good enough last year to still maintain the starting role. So I think you go Spears, and wherever I put Spears, I'm going to probably put Singleton as well. They're both young guys. It's not like you got to bet against age for either one. I know Spears doesn't really have an ACL in one leg, but that's not going to scare me too much. I'm going to put him. I don't know what to expect from this Tennessee offense. I do expect improvements. I've drafted Carnell Tate in multiple leagues. This is a tough one. I think because of the limited upside, I do have to drop them down to probably C tier. But I think it's going to be really close to like the Jordan James, Ray Davis, like right at the top of C tier. Maybe behind the Miami guys. No, I think I got to put them above the Miami guys. Just know that Spears in the top of C tier is also paired with a Nicholas Singleton and Michael Carter. Man, I'm ranking you just because you've somehow been relevant still. After all the teams you've been on, now you are number 35 on the Titans, which is just ugly, man. 22 on the Cardinals looks so much better. But I'm going to put you in D tier at the bottom of it, right behind my guy Lobby. just because you're the fourth string on a Titans offense that I don't know what to expect from. So, Commanders, Washington Commanders, we are on the last team here. So let's go out with a bang here. This is a tough one. You got 5 guys that could possibly play here. You got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt listed in the 1 slot. Bold move by fantasy points there. Rachaad White, Katron Allen, the rookie, Jeremy McNichols, and Jerome Ford. All of these guys, other than the rookie Katron Allen, got quite a bit of work last year. Now, obviously, Chris Rodriguez has left. Eckler is no longer there. And Rachaad White is a free agent that came in from the Buccaneers. Rachaad White is going to be the guy to me. It seems pretty clear to me that it's going to be Rachaad White. And I think because of that, we don't rank him. I don't rank him. I'm putting Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in there. I'm putting McNichols in there. And I'll even put Jerome Ford in here somewhere. Bill, I was in. I was in on the hype last year. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he's a talented running back, but I do see the limits of his game, especially when it comes to the passing game. And so I don't blame anyone who, wanted to fade that hype when it came out, or when he started to build in the preseason and, even into the early parts of last season. I like Bill a lot. And I do think that there's a chance that he's the, maybe the 40 to Rachaad White's 60. But I also think there's probably a very slight chance that he's the 60 to Rachaad White's 40 when it comes to snap share. How do you weigh that? This Commanders offense was also not very good last year with Bill in the lineup. Is Rachaad White going to save that? Is Chega Okonkwo, is he going to save that? Antonio Williams, 3rd-round rookie out of Clemson, is he going to save that? I don't know. Obviously, the big elephant in the room is Jaden Daniels, and will he be, like we talked about with Jonathan Taylor earlier, the tide that rises all the other boats? I'm betting on that. I'm betting on Jaden Daniels in 2026. Huge bounce back. I just drafted him actually in a startup this week. And so, I do think there's going to be some touchdown opportunities for Bill. I'm putting him in the B tier. I do think he's probably got more juice than like the Aaron Jones and the Camaras right now. But his role is a little bit more questionable. So I understand if you want to rank him lower than those guys, but I'm definitely putting him at the top of B tier for now. Maybe at the bottom of the A tier. That's a tough one. He doesn't feel as solidified as like a Chuba Hubbard or a Sampson or a Pacheco or a Tracy, at least based on what we've heard so far. McNichols, man, I'm putting him in Y. You talk about guys that is just not fun to watch. That one's tough. That's like, for Jeremy McNichols, obviously it's awesome. He's had a long career. He actually is getting older. I think he's over 30 now, which is old for a running back. He's tough to watch at this point. He kind of reminds me of Chris Rodriguez, where there's not much there when it comes to his explosiveness. But I think, I don't know what else to say, to be honest. But Jerome Ford, I think he's probably the cut candidate on this team. And like I said, Rachaad White, he's got the history with Jaden Daniels in the backfield. I think that's our guy. If we even want to, we can go ahead and run him at the 1 spot in S tier. So that's all of our running backs there. That's all 32 teams. I want to thank you all for tuning in and listening and, seeing our tiers here. We've walked through all 32 teams, and I've got, a very colorful board here, the tier list. And I can share this via Twitter if anybody wants to see that. My Twitter handle is TW56ND so if you want to hit me up, I will send you something. I obviously made that Twitter handle when I was young and wasn't ready for a YouTube account. But anyway, our S tier here, just to give you a quick rundown in case you obviously can't see it on Twitter. Rashad in S tier at the top, we've got Rashad White, Blake Corum, Ramondre Stevenson, both Steelers running backs, Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren, Tank Bigsby, Kyle Monangai. A tier, we have Jonathan Brooks, Tyler Algier, RJ Harvey, Keaton Mitchell, Kenneth Gainwell, Tyrone Tracy, Dylan Sampson, Isaiah Pacheco, Chuba Hubbard. And then the B tier is the second biggest. We've got Bill Krosky-Merritt, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, Amari DiMercado, Woody Marks, Brian Robinson, Braylon Allen, the two Dallas running backs behind Javonte Williams. We got Jaden Blue, Malik Davis, Kamani Vidal in L.A., Chris Rodriguez, DJ Giddens, Taj Brooks, Rasheen Ali. C tier, at the top of C tier, we've got Ray Davis, Jordan James, Tyjae Spears, and Nicholas Singleton. He's coupled in there. And also up in B tier with Amari DiMercado, we had Emmett Johnson, don't forget that. And Rasheen Ali, we had Adam Randall with him. Some of those rookies are just not on here. Jalen Wright, Ollie Gordon combo in the C tier, right behind Tyjae Spears and Nicholas Singleton. Then we've got Isaiah Davis. Then we have the combo behind Josh Jacobs in Green Bay with Chris Brooks, Marshawn Lloyd, James Conner, Sean Tucker, George Holani, Justice Hill, Samaje Perine, Jarquez Hunter, Will Shipley, Trevor Etienne, Devin Neal, Caleb Johnson, and that rounds out C tier. Then we go to D tier. We've got LaQuint Allen, Jawar Jordan, Phil Maffa, Rocket Sanders, Trey Benson. I should probably put Trey Benson at the top of D tier. Yeah, we'll do that. Trey Benson. Then we got Ty Johnson, Rashard Smith, Dylan Lobby, Michael Carter, Lan Larison. And then in the Y tier, seriously, why are we talking about these guys? Why are they still on rosters? I don't even know. Well, some of them I bet on, like Kendre Miller and Roschon Johnson, and maybe they will get an opportunity. Who knows? But we got Devin Singletary, Roschon Johnson, Ronnie Rivers, Kendre Miller, Jeremy McNichols, and Jerome Ford. That's all 32 teams, all their running backs, all the backups. Hopefully this was helpful so you guys can prioritize these guys on waivers throughout the offseason, try to get ahead of your league mates, see what kind of upside these teams have, and hopefully hit something big and be able to turn a profit that way. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Faith and Fantasy, and I appreciate you watching. Good luck out there.